Okay, are we ready to start Incredulous, people? Robin, tell your story first while I get myself ready for the introduction. You've got 30, 40 seconds.
Okay, it was Christopher Sykes when he was, I'm sure most of you have seen Pleasure of Finding Things Out. When he first pitched it to Richard Feynman wasn't particularly interested, and they went off to the place where Richard Feynman always had soup, and Feynman was going, he said, I'm not really interested, the arts and humanities is a waste of time. And Christopher Sykes, thinking, well, I'm not going to get the deal anyway, so it doesn't matter. He said, do you know what, Professor Feynman, you're ridiculous. The idea that all humanities and arts are a waste of time, it's just preposterous. That, of course, made Feynman joyful. The fact that he'd risen to the occasion, he went, do you know what, I did read a novel once. It was called Madame Bovary, and it was kind of nifty. And that, to me, is the best, if you ever want to describe Madame Bovary, kind of nifty. Penguin Modern Classics on the front.
It was better than that in practice. Hello! Welcome to Incredulous. Good morning and welcome to QED. This time it's the class of 2013. That was our theme, Blues Walk, ordinarily by Lou Donaldson, but this time by me. Okay, class, we're recording this podcast live. Just in case any listener doubts we are recording live, make some noise! Okay, so I'm guessing we have some excited Incredulous fans in the room, yes? Well, I'm sure you're all looking forward to tonight's party. I'm particularly excited about the Ockham Awards that will be presented this evening. We have an Ockham winner from last year here, and an Ockham nominee for this year. So I have a question for my excited Incredulous fans. Where's my fucking Ockham nomination, eh? Out! So I'll be in the corner licking my wounds tonight. Yes, welcome to Incredulous episode 20, live from QED. Incredulous is a satirical podcast from the Merseyside Skeptics Society. I am your host, Andy Wilson, and we are situated in the Douglas Adams Room, kindly sponsored by Glue Communications. Please buy their stuff. We really do have a delicious panel of very funny skeptics here today. We also have Michael Marshall. So let's meet the panel, starting over there.
Oh, hello. I'm Brian Thompson, and I am on Incredulous. I've been on Incredulous before. I don't know why. I think I found Andy maybe on Skype by accident.
It was a dating chat room.
Well, his handle is Saxman, and I thought it was just a typo. So, anyway, it turned out to be very disappointing in a lot of ways, but...
Just introduce yourself, Brian. Oh, right. Just say hello. I'm Brian Thompson of the Amateur Scientist Podcast. I'm Brian Thompson,
and I'm on this show.
Okay, next we have Carrie Poppy. Carrie, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Carrie Poppy. I host Ono, Ross, and Carrie, an investigations podcast. I am on this show right now.
Wow, we have a lot in common.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Michael Marshall from Merseyside Skeptics Society, and I will be playing the role of the person carried by the other funny guests throughout the course of the next hour.
Hello, I'm Robin Ince, and I was invited by Michael Marshall. He said, why not just come up this year and don't really do anything? And then once that honey trap was set up, they went, oh, well, you could just do one panel, or maybe another, and interview Richard Dawkins. And there's some cleaning that's also required. And also, will you tell us the secret of Brian Cox's hair? No.
Fantastic. Well, what a great panel, eh? I'd like to remind the audience that Googling during the live show is frowned upon and can result in your face being lit up. However, tweeting is de rigueur, and I invite you to tweet under the tag Incredulous if you have anything to say, or Incredulousy if you have it to say to me. The best tweet will win a prize of this here snake oil. Well, we should begin. Let's start with the always non-judgmental and even-handed first round topical tales. Marsh, why is Bill Roach of Coronation Street a complete wanker?
Well, I actually think, Andy, with that question, you've actually hit on something pretty insightful and intelligent.
Oh, thank you.
And I realise you're going to find that hard to believe. I find it fucking hard to believe, having known you for a long time, that you can say anything insightful or intelligent. But I think you're kind of, in this case, like a crude savant. And I'll explain why. Because we're talking about William Roach, who's the longest-serving person on British television. He's been in Coronation Street for like 53 years or something. He kind of plays the human incarnation of the theory of bland, the idea of bland in the form of Ken Barlow. And I realised we've kind of got an international flavour to certainly our panel, maybe The Room, maybe people don't know Coronation Street. But if anyone's familiar with the rain that we've had in Manchester over the last couple of days, if you kind of imagine that rain could speak and could tell you its hopes, its dreams, its ambitions, and it could stand near a whippet. That's essentially what Coronation Street, the show, is. That's kind of the whole thing. It's like EastEnders
Clear as
for
a bell,
actors.
thank you.
It's like EastEnders for actors who have voices which have more than 2 volume settings, but characters that only have 2 dimensions. That's kind of the rule.
Is there a man with a lip named Mr. Bates?
There is one of those in every British TV show, every single one, including the news. We've got to sort of crowbar it in every time. It was in the Royal Charter since 1763.
Smolderingly sexy.
He always is.
Mr. Bates! That's my... Downton Abbey is my favourite show.
Well, William Roach, he was in an interview recently. He got in the news. He's been interviewed on New Zealand television. And what he did in the interview was he took the opportunity to tear a strip off. It was a much-needed strip to be torn off a group of people who, frankly, have had it far too good for far too long. By which I mean victims of sex abuse. Because if you ask me, they've been pandered to and respected and given unlimited access to justice for far too long. They've had it their own way, and it's about time somebody, took a stand against these sexually abused and entirely blameless monsters. Because when I knew that Andy was giving me this story, which is obviously like about 50... Well, it's about 55 seconds though, because this whole thing is completely unprepared and spontaneous, and we don't do any research at all. But when I knew that Andy was giving me this story, I kind of felt this warm and familiar glow. Because frankly, I don't think it would be an InKredulous live show at QED without one of us being forced to squeeze some lols out of sex abuse. I think this is the 3rd time running now that Andy's given us this incredibly easy comedic topic. So did anyone see the interview that William Roach did? It was remarkable. If anyone hasn't seen it, you're in for a treat. In fact, you're in for a huge treat, because obviously we're in Manchester now. And Coronation Street's filmed in Manchester. So we've pulled a few strings. And if I want to give a warm welcome, please, to William Roach, our special guest, William Roach. No, nobody? No? Okay, no. For the podcast audience, nobody looked around there, but William Roach is not coming, unfortunately. Instead, I've actually got the transcript of the relevant portion of the interview here. And the interviewer kind of starts by asking him about this weird cult that Bill's in called the Pure Love Movement. And he says to him, you talked about accepting pure love and these things won't happen to you. And to some people that sounds perhaps like you're saying that the victims bring this on themselves. Is that what you're saying? And that's kind of a fair question, you'd assume. And Bill responds by saying, no, not quite, and yet, yes, I am. Because everything that happens to us has been a result of what we have been in previous lives or whatever. And stopping Bill right there, great use of whatever. Textbook use of whatever. I always find if I'm going to suggest that people have been victims of a horrible, horrible crime and that they're actually to blame themselves, it's always a good idea to be as vague as possible. And if you kind of look back through documents from Germany in the 1930s, it's just littered with Nazis saying, yeah, so we rounded them all up and shot them because they were like Jews or blacks or whatever. Anyway, so it's a great way to empower your argument. But Bill carries on and he says, if you accept, and this is all you have to do. It's that simple. You just have to accept. You don't have to sit on a mountain in the Himalayas and you don't have to meditate for 20 years. You just have to know in your heart that you are pure love and these things won't happen to you. And it's great to see someone finally taking a shot at meditators, because they get off scot-free far too often. They're in their little relaxed, cross-legged state. And it would also be a shame to go on a bizarre rant about sex abuse and not tear a strip off Sherpas and mountaineers in the Himalayas too. So he's really picking his targets wisely. And you'd think at this point in the interview, but basically at this point the interviewer says, those views are a bit dickish. Do you really want to say that? Do you want to consider that? And anyone else who wasn't totally committed to their batshittery would kind of back down. But Bill doesn't flinch, doesn't give an inch at all. Instead, he kind of comes back crazier and wilder than ever. And when you watch the interview, it's a bit like that scene in The Untouchables. That's like, he pulls a knife, you pull a gun. That kind of thing about Capone. And it's sort of like, he tells you your entire worldview is a product of the fact that you've had it cushy for the last 53 years, you've never actually suffered any hardship, and you tell him, and this is what Bill says, we'll use Bill's word here. He said, it's very hard for us to understand fully. We come from the spiritual realm, we're spiritual beings, and as such, we're all immortal. We go back to the spiritual realm, and there comes a point when we cease to incarnate. When we incarnate back here, there's the veils of forgetfulness. We think this is reality. It's not. We're from the spiritual world. Now that's it. And that's the Coronation Street way, and that's how you're going to catch Mike Baldwin. I've made the last bit up. That might bother me. He didn't say that. That is from The Untouchables. Bill Roach, I don't know if anyone knows a lot about him. He said a lot of really, really weird stuff in the past. This isn't the first time he said something crazy, and that's not really a surprise to me, because you can't come up with this kind of world-class A-grade crazy overnight. You know, you've got to spend years in the apprenticeship. You've got to learn your craft from those who are more experienced than you. You've got to start off saying things that are slightly offbeat or mildly esoteric. You've got to work around the eccentric margins and the peripherally peculiar. And then after a while, you can sort of venture into the astounding, or maybe play the whack job wingman to a more experienced nutcase. And only then, when you've gone through these years of training, you can say something really, really crazy and let your inner crackpot out. So in the past, he spoke about his firm belief in the afterlife and reincarnation. And actually thinking about his whole belief in reincarnation makes another Bill Roach legend make a lot more sense. Because Robin, you must have heard the legend that Bill Roach has slept with 1,000 women, he says. Have you heard this? He makes a big deal of this quite often. He's boasted he slept with 1,000 women. Bill Roach, Ken Barlow from Coronation Street, the man of beige, has slept with 1,000 women, which is like one a month since 1960, or it's 1 an hour since last Sunday. Something like that. And that story was always a source of kind of ridicule in the tabloids. But I think it makes sense when you take into account the fact that he was reincarnated. I think Bill's actually sort of counting the people he slept with and their past lives and his past lives and the past lives of the people he slept with in past lives. And when you kind of put all that together, you get this kind of like epoch-spanning orgy with Bill Roach at the centre of it, which I think is a remarkable thing to know about the world that we live in. And
I heard it was a binary error in printing. There we are.
Yeah, it was 10.0. That's what it was. Yeah, he was just rounding down to two decimal places, 4 sig fig. But you'd think, with him being at the centre of this epoch-spanning orgy of thousands of women, that you'd want him to use protection. But we know he uses protection because he believes he's pure love. He's made of pure love, and he's therefore protected from anything. So we're fine. He didn't have to make any really long and awkward phone calls after getting bad news from the clinic, where he has to track down past girlfriends of people he was 1,700 years ago and find out what they're doing now. And yeah, I've got some bad news for you, love. And there's a lot to Bill's kind of special worldview too. He was a child who was heavily influenced by his grandfather, who was a homeopath. His grandfather was always a spiritualist too, and his grandfather started the Steiner School that Bill himself attended. He also, in his biography, Bill Roach, he had a biography called Soul on the Street, which I'm positive was a 1970s blaxploitation film. I'm absolutely positive of that fact. He wrote about he had a massive interest in astrology. He's got a degree from the Faculty of Astrological Studies, which I'm sure is incredibly credible as an institute. He also used to practice druidic rituals and has a pet psychic to converse with his dog. And last month he claimed that he can cure cancer by touching people. And he said that on December 12th, 2012, we'd all see loads of tsunamis and earthquakes as the Earth cleansed itself on its path to a higher vibration. Yeah. And he also told newspapers that very soon all people will start communicating telepathically. And he knew this after a homeopath implanted thoughts into his mind on the astral plane while he slept. So, just to recap about Ken Barlow from Coronation Street, the man of 1,000 women. Steiner schools, homeopathy, astral planes, astrology, telepathy, animal psychics, past lives, love cults, druids, faith healing, mind apocalypses and karmic vibrations. It's sort of like all forms of pseudoscience flow through Bill Roach. He's like a human ley line of bullshit. Every bullshit out there, he's the ley line. So to return to your question, Andy, has Bill Roach been a complete wanker? I'd argue he's the most complete wanker we've ever seen.
Yes.
He's a brave man, though. When you think of what a lot of elderly celebrities who were kind of, in the 60s and 70s, the fact that he says, I cure people by touching them, it's a dangerous time to say that.
Especially when he's blaming the victims of sex abuse as well.
I'm so sorry, I thought she had cancer. What do you mean you thought she had cancer? I dropped some coins, one thing led to another. It's, I find it, the thing is that I don't get with the William Roach story is, in one way, who cares? Who actually, when they're looking at how am I going to, my life, I need to understand my life, who should I look to for advice? Should I go back to the greats, to the Greeks? Should I look at the Stoics? Should I look at Wittgenstein, Heidegger? Do you know what? No, a possible sex druid from a soap opera. I think he is the person who will probably lead me to the path of righteousness. I never trust, how many people here have ever trusted any possible sex druid? They're the least trustworthy. The uncertainty of a sex druid. No, thank you.
I was on the street on the way here, and a sex druid came up to me and said, "Can I have 20p for the bus?" And I thought, I give him it, and I thought, he's not getting the bus. He's not going to, but you can't trust them. They are untrustworthy people.
It's also the sheets they wear as druids, because they're sex druids. It's disgusting.
But they don't wash them or anything. Yes, Bill Roach has spent years accumulating esoteric knowledge, including spiritualism, homeopathy, and all things airy-fairy. He's taken part in druid trials, was educated at a Steiner school set up by his grandfather, and predicted that the Earth would move onto a higher vibration. That was a memorable episode of Coronation Street. He's also a vegetarian.
What does that mean? This thing about whenever I hear about higher vibrations and what exactly is going to... What is that?
It's a song by Stevie Wonder. Higher Ground. Yeah. I didn't get a laugh, but there you go. Demonstrating my encyclopedic knowledge of music.
So hold on.
Yeah.
What's tearing a strip?
Sorry?
What does tearing a strip mean?
Yeah, Robin, explain yourself.
Oh, what? Did I say tearing a strip?
I think that was me. It's to have a go. He's brought them down a peg or two. You know, he's shown them what the world's really about. You know, get them down off their... Those sex abuse victims, they're always on their high horse.
Yeah.
They're always going on about... And he's there saying, look... Wind it in.
Yeah, no.
Calm it down. We don't...
Followed all of that. I'm not going back to 6 minutes ago to make you repeat your story. Okay, I'm going to try to use tearing a strip no less than 35 times.
Wow, that's
in this
fantastic.
podcast.
Well, we're all looking forward to that. Well, yes, well, like I say, he's a vegetarian and they're all nutters anyway, aren't they, Carrie?
Touché.
Carrie.
Carrie, are you a vegetarian?
I am.
Me too. Don't we look fit and healthy? Wow, look at the omnivore in the
Surely,
middle. Oh, the tragedy of my longer life as your colon generally decays.
Surely not meat too, meat less, is what you should have said. But, Carrie, who is conducting the first half of an experiment to find out if it's really true that men are from Mars and women are from Venus?
I'm so glad you asked. I happen to know all about this. So this billionaire named Dennis Tito, real name, is helping to bankroll this mission to Mars. So apparently he was the first person who went into space without having any background as an astronaut or even a scientist. And so he's hoping to send a couple to Mars on an 18-month mission. And they're looking for a middle-aged couple who have a strong relationship. Anybody. So they're joined by Jane Pointer. She was in Biosphere 2, and she says it's really important that people in these long-term experimental environments have someone with them who they trust and even love. And she should know, because while she was in Biosphere, she met her now husband, who I assume was Polly. You fucking stole my joke! I'm gonna hide my notes from Brian.
Why did they even make a sequel to that movie? It sucked.
So like I say, they're looking for a middle-aged couple, specifically because they'll be past childbearing age, which is important because the radiation could cause infertility, and I guess they assume every single astronaut wants kids. Now, to me, that's a great reason to go, free infertility. So, I'd like to submit that I'm actually the perfect volunteer for this mission. I don't want kids. I'm patient to a fault, which is important on an 18-month mission. And when traveling to Mars, just like when traveling to the UK, I'll claim I'm from Canada. I think my partner, Brian, here would be a great traveling buddy. We just traveled across the Atlantic together, and I figure it's like about the same.
It took 18 months to get here, didn't it, for you guys?
Almost. Yeah, thanks, USA.
And you were able to give birth to 2.5 children? Which you gestate very quickly.
There's low radiation on US Air, but there's some.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, if everyone in this room could hate tweet at US Air for us, that would be great. We do have our luggage now, but for a while we didn't. So if we smell, that's why. Okay, I assume this is about the same as our journey just was. So here are a few things we'll need on our trip to Mars. We'll be ordering 15 to 20 items a week from the Sky Mall Duty Free magazine. Always at least one water slide. I like Coke Zero. Brian likes Mr. Pibb because he's a horrible person.
I like Mr. Pibb because he's a lot less pretentious than a Dr. Pepper.
Nobody in this room knows who Mr. Pibb is.
What? You guys don't have Mr. Pibb?
No.
One person raised his hand. Oh, Mr. Pibb is a disgusting, disgusting drink. Why don't you tell them about it, Brian?
Is this who I was supposed to meet? Well, I was supposed to meet somebody from the fan forum. It's basically like a Dr. Pepper.
Do you guys have Dr. Pepper?
Yeah.
Except he didn't complete his graduate studies.
It's the worst thing. It's the worst thing. So the Martian flight crew should try to hide their accents because this is America, for God's sake. And so I also want to tell you this beautiful quote from one astronaut who's working on this mission. They asked her why this mission combining love and survival and exploration will be inspiring for generations to come. And this is what she said. Couples have occasionally flown in space together on short flights, and it seemed to work well, so why not?
Brilliant.
There is something, though, as well about the question of going, why would it be inspiring to go to Mars? Yeah, now you said it like that, it sounds a bit rubbish, doesn't it? It's just, I mean, it is... I think it should be more of a buddy movie. I think a married couple is a bad idea. I think more of a kind of Charles Grodin, Robert De Niro Midnight Run scenario is what you need.
Because I think that the reason it's a married couple is because she said to him, you never take me out anymore. He said, wow.
I'd like to see them recreate the movie Twins on this mission.
I'd like to see it mixed with Junior as well. A
There you
pregnant Schwarzenegger goes into space with
gives
a
birth
hint
to
of
Danny
Total
DeVito.
Recall. This is a fucking amazing movie. Twins, Total Recall, and Junior all in one.
How does the infertility thing affect a pregnant man, do you think?
These are the questions we
That
need
is
to
a great moment when Schwarzenegger... It becomes a little bit sadder, though. What's wrong with my body? Your baby's dead. Oh. It will be... It'll have a kind of Cronenbergian bleak vision as well.
Well, we all know it was his maid that actually impregnated him. And then he had to cover that up for 10 years.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Well, we all know that the most stable romance of all time was between Harold and Maude. So I think that we're going to need some sort of a similar situation there. Now, you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do alone in a spaceship with a corpse for 7 to 9 months. But I mean, you can play games with them. You can pose them once rigor mortis sets in. It's like, what is this, disturbing or something?
You've now gone into Weekend at Bernie's.
Yes.
Okay, Dennis Tito, a surprisingly well-qualified space pioneer, intends to send a couple on a return trip to Mars by 2018. Who can guess how many people have travelled in space when that is determined by exceeding an altitude of 100 kilometres?
It's 0.
How many people have travelled
None
in
of them
space
did. It's all
above
bullshit.
100 kilometres? Don't listen to Marsh. Come on, shout it out. 30? Anybody else? 36? 530. But only 24 of those have gone further than low Earth orbit, in other words, toward the moon. And 12 of them have walked on the moon. None of them were married to each other. Why 2018? Because this is a time when the two planets will be closest to one another, probably in bitter opposition to the romantic situation of our trailblazing older couple by the time they get there.
In fairness, the reason none of them were married to each other is because Buzz and Neil were in a civil partnership, but they just weren't able to legalise it at the time.
Brian.
Please phone your Member of Parliament or your congressperson, as the case may be. Yes?
Brian, which priest would like to have his sacramental bread and eat it, especially if it helps his case?
I'm not sure, but I think you might be speaking of, hold on, let me look at something. William Finnegan, a 59-year-old priest who goes by the name Father Bill, parish priest at St. Clair's Roman Catholic Church in Fagley, Bradford, West Yorkshire? Is that a place? Here's what he's accused. He's falsely accused of kissing and, I think, lightly petting the buttocks of a 17-year-old girl. Surprise. Now, here's his defense. He says, or his attorney says, you may be thinking that Father Bill is only human. As a Catholic priest, he's taken a vow of celibacy, condemning himself to a single and lonely life filled with perhaps an underlying sexual frustration, because, let's face it, it is not a natural state for a human to be in. Okay, so you're probably thinking that the only reason that he decided to kiss and lightly pet the buttocks of this 17-year-old girl is because he was pent up and frustrated from his vow of celibacy. But, not the case. He's actually secretly been living a non-celibate life for, 13 years now? Yes, for 13 years he's been secretly married to, get this, a lady. Of age lady. And they apparently have not lived together. They've only told their bestest friends, the BFFs, that they are in a relationship. And, but they do have sex regularly. So obviously he's having so much sex with his wife. Why would he even care about some 17-year-old? Because we all know people who are married are never looking for anything on the side. Never, ever.
The reportage actually says they have sex regularly.
They do. In fact, it says they have sex regularly, and I think that it got a little bit too graphic. I think he's protesting a little bit too much. He says, yes, they do have sex regularly, and then they listed the positions that they have sex in. I'm sorry, in which they have sex. I'm just going to run down this list, and this is abridged, frankly. So these are just, I cut the worst ones.
Sorry, before you do that, can you play your saxophone in a kind of slightly just underneath? I think that would...
Please play for me, sax man. Oh, sultry. They engage in the Cleveland Steamer. Sometimes they do it Snoop Doggy style. Every now and then, on birthdays and holidays, they take part in the old Charles Nelson Riley's Revenge. If you peek through the windows, you might see them. You might see them enjoying an old Thatcher scratcher. Of course, what all married couples do, the devil's shoehorn. There's the classic Too Fast, Too Furious. Spelled with the number 2. For those listening at home, I made an obscene gesture. There is, of course, the retro favorite, the Mommy's Little Helper. And finally, when they find themselves up north, the old Manchester Chili Chaser. How about a round of applause for the sax man?
I also do bar mitzvahs and funerals.
I got to knock both of those out at once. So, I'm sure you can
So he was married for 13 years?
13 years, lucky 13.
Having regular sex in a variety of positions.
Yes, in a
And this was his defence. How was he claiming that as a defence?
Well, when you're having sex with your homely wife, you're not going
Did you just say comely?
Yes, I did. You're not going to desire a 17-year-old, no matter how shapely her buttocks.
Of course.
And frankly, he says that the 17-year-old came on to him, which he said that she came up to him and she planted a kiss on him, and he confessed to his wife, and his wife testified that yes, he called her when this happened, and he was apoplectic about it. He was bewildered. He was slightly aroused. He was so upset that he couldn't stand up for some reason for like 5 to 6 minutes. So obviously he didn't do it. But even if he did, round of applause to that priest for bucking the trend.
Just belay that round of applause. Update.
What?
Guilty.
retrial. Did they not read this list of sexual positions I made up, Your Honor?
Yes. William Finnegan, or Father Bill, has been found guilty of sexual assault against a teenage girl, even though he had denied the allegation. By way of defence, and to prove he almost certainly didn't have a drop of semen left to motivate such a horrendous act, sensationally revealed that he'd been married. Presumably, he was asking the jury to assume that as a married man he was getting so much rumpy-pumpy, there would be no need for this 59-year-old man to force himself on a 17-year-old girl. Fortunately, most of the jury were married themselves and saw straight through that one. Robin.
You've got to know, by the way, just culturally, because I know that there are certain divides, but there is a big problem in this country with a lot of teenage girls and elderly middle-aged men are constantly being harassed by them. Anyone who's old enough to remember the TV series On the Buses, which was remade in your country as Speed, it's an incredible issue. So.
Yeah,
I can't believe it. I'm 63 without my own teeth, and still they come. Anyway, so.
A lot of people don't know that Keanu Reeves is 78 years old.
Robin, have you seen any miracle cures for gayness recently?
Yeah, well, this is all about the bus advert, which there was a certain amount of problems with, which was in terms of as a reaction to. Well, basically, we have this issue now, which is everyone in. I'm sorry, I'm banging the table because since you mentioned courtroom dramas, suddenly I've reached that bit where I'm kind of Jimmy Stewart in Anatomy of Murder. But where everyone sees themselves as some form of victim. So because Stonewall had an advert which was basically, some people are gay, get over it, a lot of people felt very offended. Because as most anyone here in this room who is straight will know, it's a burden. It's a terrible burden. We will wonder, only just down the road from here is somewhere called the Gay Village, where if you're straight, you walk down there and boo! Look at someone there! And look, touching someone from the other gender, you disgust me! Boo! A man and a woman! It's Adam and Steve, not hang on a minute. Anyway, so it's kind of... so there's this...
Stole your line, T.
One of my favourite things, by the way, about the Gay Village, which I think was the first area that I remember in the UK, which really kind of was, this person just went, yeah, this is kind of, totally friendly.
Oh no, there's loads more. I've got some addresses if I can...
But Canal Street used to have, which I think was quite a delightful bit of graffiti, someone had taken out the C and the S, so Canal Street became anal treat. And I think that's kind of... That's a delight. But basically, there was then a bus advert that, I think it was it the Christian Legal Association? Are they the ones involved? I think it was
Core Issues Trust.
Core Issues Trust and the Christian League, who said, what about the ex-gays who are always being oppressed all the time? And I think I've got it here because you gave it to me this morning.
We know Robin's very busy.
Not gay, ex-gay, post-gay, and proud. Get over it. And it's been kind of found that really that was something of it shouldn't be on the side of a bus. And I'm caught between two things there, because in one way there's free speech, and in another way there's, sometimes you're such a dick, maybe you're not allowed to have free speech. I mean, I think this is why recently I was saying, I think we need to get rid of free speech. I think there needs to be a nominal fee for opinions. This will obviously be kind of put next to actually how much you earn, so if you're quite poor, don't worry, it will be done. But free speech is just being bandied around now, and it's being used too freely by a lot of it. Anyone here who's on Twitter will know about this. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone thinks that they're oppressed. You pick up a newspaper and it will say, so yeah, what about all the people who aren't gay? What about that? No one, like the gay marriage thing, which I found, I was doing a speech at the Secular Europe March, and I was talking about gay marriage at one point, and this was before it kind of went through the House of... Sorry, I've banged the microphone away from myself to make it more enigmatic. Then you can pick up every other word. It might to make more sense. But it was, so I just mentioned gay marriage because it was before they'd had the vote in the Commons, and this man came up to me and very aggressively went, "You don't seem to realise if they bring in gay marriage, it'll be terrifying." And I then explained to him that it would kind of be very much an opt-in scenario as opposed to and it's this where everyone here, and in fact, in the week that Margaret Thatcher died, one of the things that Margaret Thatcher did brilliantly and has been learnt by many other things, including Fox News, is when you are dominant, you always still play it as if you are the oppressed. So if you ever watched her when she was in the Commons, she used to play it as if she was in opposition. So yeah, and if you watch Fox News, you'd see the poor corporations. Anyone hear about climate change? You know that climate change, all these highly paid climate scientists, and they're oppressing the oil industry, who are just a group of kindly, predominant men who have a drill. And all they want to do is give oil to people and give fossil fuels. That's all they want to do. And then these climate scientists in their cars made of gold and ivory and dreams come along. And so this to me, this kind of the gay bus thing is another example of the pretense of, whenever you see in a newspaper someone going, do you know the worst thing to be now? It's a white middle-class male. You go, well, actually, no, I've got the statistics here. And it seems to still be all right, actually. It's not. I went to Marks and Spencer's the other day. They didn't have my collar size. It was like slavery. It's kind of... So it is... And I don't quite... The Christian Legal Association, there's a fantastic quote, the Christian Legal Centre, they're very much driven by all the ideas in the Bible, as long as they have some kind of right-wing objective, as far as I can see. The Christian Legal... they're not that bothered about poverty. They'll get their treats later on. Lucky poor bastards. They'll be dead early from rickets and in heaven with God. With all our wealth and delicious caviar, it'll take ages before we're allowed to kiss God. Anyway, so... Sorry, I was drinking with Richard Dawkins last night. But this quote to me is just, some people choose not to act on same-sex attraction. They should not be ostracised. But who has ever ostracised someone? I've decided not to have sex with another man. Just get out of my house. It's really not one of the major issues of oppression currently going on, is failure to have a same-sex relationship.
Fantastic. Well done. Thank you. Okay.
I met a pastor, actually. I've got to tell this. I do mention this in the show, but I had this great conversation with this pastor in Leicester, and we were talking about gay marriage, and I said, what do you think of it? He said, well, what worries me is if they bring in gay marriage, where will they draw the line? Right? Because he'd seen all these things from American evangelists saying, what next? Man marries donkey, etc. And I said, I think they probably draw the line at consent. And he went, oh, yeah, I haven't really thought of it like that. Quite sweet in its own way.
Fantastic. So the Core Issues Trust says homosexual genital expression is not God's will for his people. They offer on their website...
That quote again.
That is a quote.
Homosexual genital expression
is not God's will for his people.
Genital expression sounds something very specific and very different.
Surely.
I'm not writing this stuff. Anybody who listens regularly knows that. They offer a thick soup of religious and spiritual argument to support their central message of stop shagging blokes, mate. And they set a high bar for candidates to conquer. They don't talk much about women. From their website, this is the high bar that they set. Merely abstaining from homosexual activity, though admirable, cannot be regarded as healing. Heterosexual preference is the goal of gender-affirming therapy, and this may lead to marriage. However, there will always be those who choose to remain celibate and single. Such singleness should be valued and respected. I advise any Catholic priest not to visit this site. They will be very confused. That is the end of round one. Robin's in the lead! It's in the script. Okay, round two.
I wouldn't do the show unless I was in it.
Celebrities, you know what they're like. This round is called Judicious Justifications, and it is a brand new round! In this round, they don't know about this, I will give each panel member in turn a statement which, purely for the purposes of entertainment, they must wholeheartedly agree with and justify for at least 45 seconds. Justifying on the fly the proposition I've proposed in my opening gambit. So, for example, I could say it's obvious that the sun is the centre of the universe because, and the panellist would pick up, continuing what I've started, and obviously they've got to be funny, right? Now, if they're not funny, I'd like to hear some booing. We're short on time. We've got to hurry them up a little bit if they're not performing.
You're like a spherical Nicholas Parsons.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I will award I will award extra marks to any other panellist interrupting with a humorous intervention and throwing them off their game. The success of the panellist will be determined via the audience clapometer. When they have finished ranting, I will subjectively assess the audience reaction in such a way as to ensure Marsh doesn't do well. Okay? The first one is for Carrie, and something above 45 seconds is what we're looking for here. Okay? I'm casting my eyes conspiratorially around the table. Carrie, do you want the one about fur coats, veganism, or feminism?
Fur coats.
Okay. It's the same question. Magician's choice. Activism and campaigning is the worst use of my time because...
That's not a question. Oh my god. Okay. Activism and campaigning are the worst use of my time. Is that right?
Yeah, I just said that.
Because, well, you mentioned vegetarianism. I mean, this is like the worst use of your time ever because almost everyone is already vegetarian. You've got your elephants, you've got your chickens. Like almost every organism on the planet is a vegetarian. Don't have many
of those in my social circle.
So I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my time right now that I'm trying to reach out.
The world is mostly elephants, Andy.
It's true. And I mean, fruit flies, I mean, everybody's already on board. Feminism, okay, I guess I'm campaigning for that. Didn't know, but okay.
Fruit flies are the main thing they use for scientific experimentation, aren't they? Are they being victimised because of their vegetarianism?
Are they? You mean because they test on them?
The fruit flies, yeah.
You know, I don't think they pick them specifically because they're eating fruit.
Why is nobody speaking out on behalf of the fruit flies?
Do you think that's just a peripheral benefit?
Possibly.
I think it's actually about a kind of a size difficulty in laboratories because though elephants are, as Brian said, dominant, they do take up a lot more space than...
That'd be a hell of a fucking Petri dish, wouldn't it?
Waiter, there's an elephant in my soup. Yeah, we've got to get smaller bowls. You know, there's a whole reason that the fly is very much... Sorry,
No, that's okay. You know, now that I've sat here and thought about this, I realize that I've been doing this all wrong because I have not been focusing on the number one fur wearers. Okay. The foxes, the seals, the cats, those goddamn cats. So yeah, I mean, basically I've just been focusing on all the wrong audiences.
Okay, so let's hear the clapometer reaction, please. I'll give you a 4 for that.
Out of?
4. Yeah, just 4. Robin. Brian Cox is the worst science communicator because, and please include, for the sake of Sargonaut, please include some kind of comment about his hair. So Brian Cox is the worst science communicator because...
a lot of people don't actually realise when they watch Brian Cox that in certain sign languages from the Amazonian basin, that in fact the pointing gesture is a look of derision. So for instance, pointing at, say, a nebula or indeed the sun itself, for many of those watching in the Amazon go, is he calling the sun a wanker? So because of his lack of understanding of what the pointing... And also, I mean, he's very bad because he can't point straight ahead. Therefore, when it actually comes to talking about the movement of photons, it's fine if they're going up, it's fine if they're going down, as we saw from Wonders of Life. But if they're going ahead, he can do nothing whatsoever. He's very limited in terms of the clapometer thing. He could never actually do the median level. Hair-wise, of course, his hair was originally worn by Honor Blackman in the TV series The Avengers. It's a rich tradition. It's been through television. It's been worn by many, many different bits. Some people might notice the little front bit that's actually grey, the traditional Malin streak of a cruel man from the northeast. Very specific reference there for anyone who's read Catherine Cookson. It's 2 people. Well done. But yeah, so it's basically he's a bad science communicator because his hair ultimately shows the brutality of northeastern fictional characters. So though people wish to adore reason and critical thinking, they also fear that it'll hit them with a shovel.
Fantastic. Okay, let's hear the clapometer reaction. Yeah. That's 3 for Robin. Sargonaut, are you happy with the result of that? Yes, you're welcome. It's what? Who gives a shit?
There was this guy, Carl Sagan, you might have probably a reference to.
Oh, yes, Sagan. Yeah, what did I think of that? Yeah. Brian.
Basically, Brian Cox is like the Boys from Brazil child from Carl Sagan's Hitler, if anyone has read that.
Did you
Okay.
think she was just really into like old people's holidays?
Actually, I didn't spend any time thinking about it whatsoever. I don't care about my audience. Everybody knows that. Apparently I'm being very loud. Sorry about that, everybody that's next to a speaker. Brian, who heard the latest episode of InKredulous podcast? Who'd like to hear Brian do his in the style of Mr. Fluffernutter? Okay. So, Brian, here's... Unprepared Brian. We're going to run over by a few minutes. It won't be long, I promise.
Wait a second. Well, okay, so for those who may not know, Mr. Fluffernutter is my cat that I picked up. I picked him up on the side of the road during a road trip through Alabama. I think he was turning tricks, and so I tried to give him a better life. So I guess what I'm supposed to do an impression of him?
Yeah, do an impression of your cat, Mr. Fluffernutter.
I'll do my best. I mean, he is a cat.
Yeah. So, satirical comedy podcasts and panel shows like this are indulgent, self-aggrandizing, crowd-pleasing wastes of time because
they're all full of white men and white women. I'm sorry, darling. I didn't know if you were a woman. I thought maybe you could prove it to me later. This is kind of how my cat sounds. So that's kind of what he does. It's just white people indulging in their liberal, fascist, socialist, Marxist propaganda. Look, people tell me, we were talking about free speech earlier, you're done making fun of people.
Does Mr. Fluffernutter do an Elvis impression?
Yes. You gotta hold the mic down here. But he usually uses his claws, his cat claws. Talking about free speech, and you're being all loosey-goosey with it. Having a lot of fun at the expense of people who are complaining about their free speech being infringed. Well, I'll tell you what, sir. I cannot leave a single racist or homophobic comment on my mom's blog without her deleting them. Now, is that free speech? Now, I sent her an email. I said, my mom's a cat, by the way. She got a blog. It's called scratchpostweekly.tumblr.com. I sent her an email and I said, Mama, you delete my comments and you're no better than Hitler.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Wait.
Oh, the ball. Shit.
She said, there's a punchline.
So hard to tell.
Son, I ain't nothing like Hitler. And I said, Mom, that ain't true because I hear Hitler deleted 6 million comments. Anyway, that's what Mr. Fluffernutter says.
Okay, clapometer, let's hear you. You can have 5 for that. And finally, Marsh. There's nothing weird about religion because...
Well, there absolutely isn't anything weird about religion. That's absolutely true because this is something that happens with everybody. You know, everybody has some kind of religious thing. We all grow up. We all have our beliefs. We're not different at all. I was actually at a wedding yesterday, and seeing in a Catholic church the way they have the depictions of Jesus being brutally tortured. It reminded me of home, where I've got pictures of members of my family and people I enjoy being brutally tortured around the wall. So it's something that we all have the same kind of. The same interests, the same hobbies. I mean, sure, the Catholic priests, they do things a little differently to how I like to live my life, but who am I to judge? They're the ones to judge. That's what they're there. They've got little booths to do the judging. You go in, you tell them what you've done, they do the judging. I leave that entirely up to them. I mean, seeing the gold, the statues, the signs saying help the poor, there's absolutely nothing weird, hypocritical, or incongruous about religion at all.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, let's see what the audience thought of your useless rant. Bog off, you can have 2. Well, I'm afraid that's the end of InKredulous for QEDCon 2013.
What was the third round going to be?
It was going to be called Don't Make Me Laugh. Should we play one round? I love this round. We did it last year. One round. Yeah, is that okay? Okay. So, one round. So, time for round 3! I think we've just got time for one of these. This is a round called Don't Make Me Laugh. In this round, each panellist will say a single, after I've introduced a subject, each panellist will say a single related word in turn, and their challenge is to not make the audience laugh. Should their word choice raise even a titter, they are out. And so we go on until we have a winner. In fact, this will be the way we decide the winner of Incredulous today. Sound all right? Okay. So we only have time for one of these, so it's all or nothing. So remember, panellists, do not make the audience laugh.
I've been living by that for the last hour, to be honest.
But audience, you know what your job is. So your first topic, and we'll start with Robin. So one word in turn. So Robin, Marsh, Carrie, Brian, and then back to Robin. One word in turn, and your topic is Scientology.
Sorbet. Cruise.
Apple juice.
Tickle tuffler.
That's Brian out. Say thank you to Brian. Okay, continue.
What keeps going on?
Oh yeah, tell me we have a winner.
I'd never have asked if I'd known this was the third round. What was your last one? Tickle tuffler?
That's correct.
Right, good.
That's what they used to measure your statins.
Oh, I thought it was used at a level of disgust for Mr. Pitt, when you actually, it's the way the face looks after drinking Mr. Pitt drinks. I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm going to go to America just for those. Sorry, what's the thing?
Scientology. I knew this was a mistake.
Oh, sorry, no, I just...
Word.
Think,
just a word, yeah. One job, Robin, it's a word.
No, I can't do one word.
Well, it's
if
a good thing
anyone's
we're
ever
not
seen
running
one of my
out of time
fucking
or
shows that
anything.
goes
Okay,
on
that's Robin out. Say thank you to Robin. Okay, so we'll call it a tie between Carrie and Marsh. Yay! So thank you everyone for coming to the Douglas Adam Room to hear us rant. Thanks for coming to QED. And please, let's thank our wonderful panel who've so graciously submitted themselves for this ritual humiliation. That's Brian Thompson, Carrie Poppy, Michael Marshall, and Robin Ince. I'd like to leave you with a thought about out-of-body experiences from none other than Evel Knievel. After coming out of a coma 29 days following a particularly impressive crash during his attempt to jump the fountains outside Caesar's Palace, he was asked what it was like to be in a coma. His reply, "How do I know, man? I was in a fucking coma." Thanks for coming to Incredulous. Bye! Oh yes, Simon Evans, where are you? Simon Evans is the winner of the snake oil. Come and get it, dude. He called me a spherical Nicholas Parson, the bastard. He was quoting Robin, who called me a spherical... Did you call me a spherical Nicholas Parson?
Yeah, that's right, you won't concentrate.